Hello everyone! Well, Simon's gone and done it again. Celestial Heroes is no more. However, this time I'm not quite as proud of myself. Because this time, I know it was my fault. Because, well, the writer themselves came to me in my private messages and apologized for writing such terrible stories. And that's not what I... This your fucking show? Cats. Give them an inch, they think they're a ruler. Anyway. So. I'm not quite sure what I was trying to go with there. I think I've re-recorded this part like 50 times just because I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here. Because, look, I knew people's feelings were going to get hurt. I was just always kind of hoping more for people to disagree with me rather than actually get upset and think less of their work. Because I'm just a schlub on YouTube. I'm not even a big schlub on YouTube. My opinion only matters if you give it power to matter. And so really what I say at the end of the day never really matters. So that's why I just do what I do. I figure it's me. Who cares? And I do have my fans and they do care about my opinion. Because otherwise I don't think I would have as many people suggesting or watching as I do. But that's still only like a fraction of what other people on YouTube get. A fraction of what a lot of reviewers get anyway. So, I admittedly kind of feel bad about this one. I really do. And I will apologize. I'm frankly sorry. I never meant to make you think less of your work. I just would rather you think less of me for thinking less of your work. Because honestly, I can take it. So, let's do our final... I actually do have the fourth part of Celestial Heroes on my computer. I'm not going to be reading it out of sheer respect. If the authors are watching, if you would like to talk to me, please message me privately. Don't leave comments. I don't want any of my less than classy viewers to give you shit at all. So I'd just rather you talk to me. It's why your names aren't being mentioned. So if you do want to discuss anything afterwards, privately, please. For your own good. Because it's YouTube. YouTube is a nasty place. Now, so out of respect, I'm not going to do the fourth part. I'm just going to go ahead and do my final evaluation. Hopefully give some tips of how you could do better as writers. So, what was right with this story? Honestly, when you get past some of the stuff I didn't like, which we'll get to in a second, it was an original concept. It was. Like, frankly, I am a big fan of anime and manga and shit like that. So the kind of vibe you were going for was cool. And I liked the Guardians. I liked the theming for each character. I've always been a fan of that ever since I watched like Power Rangers and shit. I love when characters get their own special little thing. It's why Power Rangers was one of my favorite shows growing up, and why I like RPGs, because each character has their own thing. It's something I like about the whole teamwork aspect, is when each character gets to be unique in their own way when it comes to their power or whatnot. So I really like that. And I like stories like that. So just why I kind of wanted to get into it as it went on deeper, frankly. Like, I may be talking shit, but it's like, well, it still has something I like in it, so maybe I can kind of get into it as it goes. But I'll never know that now. And frankly, that's one of the only things I really liked, is that I liked the foundation you guys are sort of going. I know that's not your real foundation, because your real foundation was the characters doing stuff, but what I would consider the foundation, the sort of team of people having to use special powers to protect the world from whatever, is something I've always liked personally. And I know a lot of other people like it too, or else it wouldn't be such a popular genre. Now, what was wrong, I think one of the biggest flaws, and this, just take this at face value, personally, if you had not used characters that did not already pre-exist, the story would have been like 20, 30 times better. Just because you had all these Cartoon Network characters. I think they're all on Cartoon Network. Yeah, pretty sure. Except if the mysterious pony's in the mirror, then that's not Cartoon Network. Or My Little Pony, then that's not Cartoon Network, I don't believe. But but yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that held it back for me, is because it was characters I knew and they weren't behaving the way they normally would. They were doing something that was totally out of character and context for them. Like, yes, Annoying Orange is fucking annoying and deserves to get the shit beat out of him, but having him be in an anime controlling dark creatures is weird. Johnny Test is annoying and I wish he would get cancelled, and having him beat up is satisfying, but having him be in like a RPG anime story didn't make sense. And none of the cul-de-sac kids acted like they did. They were just kind of there to support the mainer characters, which were the original ones. And frankly, them I didn't mind too much. They were random in the context of the universe they were already being set in. But had they been on their own, in their own universe, I feel they could have flourished, honestly. So maybe something to consider there, to keep those characters alive and use them somewhere else, like using the Guardians and using the main characters to put them elsewhere. Because, like I said, the original stuff was interesting, and it had my attention. The only reason I was so turned off by it was because of the characters I did know and why they didn't resonate with me in being in this sort of action fantasy setting, especially when Ed, Ed and Eddie is very slice of life and very mostly realistic with some cartoony physics. Drinking a Coke and it's just gassing me up. I apologize for that immensely. But yeah. And there were just a few other things that were just sort of minuscule. Like, I feel there could have been more detail in certain things. Like, I felt a lot of it was more script-based than it was a story. Like, I felt there was more dialogue than there was description, which for a story, description is necessary, because otherwise it's kind of hard to picture what's going on. I felt there was a lot more talking, and a lot more needless talking at that, when there could have been describing things. Like, frankly, I mean, it's been a while, so I'll chalk it up to that, but I don't remember anything about the Guardians or their dimension, how they looked, or how the dimension looked. I remember the weapons, kind of, because they got described. Like I said, it felt more like a script than it did a story. Like, you had the characters talking, and there was enough description to sort of get the picture, but not enough for me to picture it, if that makes sense. Like, I get the idea of what you're kind of seeing, but I don't know what these things look like or what is exactly happening because the description isn't there. And when there was a lot of detail, I felt it was needless. Like, I say that because the one thing I'm recalling is from the last episode I read, which there's that whole list of what every single character wanted for lunch. That I would consider needless information. Information you want to use in a story is stuff that's moving the plot forward. Like, letting them have a lunch break, that's fine, but they don't need to each list off what they want, especially considering it's all like 12-year-old kids in a house. I frankly doubt they had the ingredients for every last little thing everybody wanted. That's more of my little nitpick, though, other than the list being kind of needless. Like I said, them having a lunch break, that's fine. But then after the lunch break, maybe have something happen. Like, you could have gone to the... Like, you could have just frankly ended that whole segment and say, hey, let's have a lunch break. What do you guys want? And then it says... Everyone listed what they wanted to have for lunch, and the two main characters did their best to appease everyone's tastes. Meanwhile, in the Fortress of Doom, or wherever the hell the bad guys were, like I said, that's been a while. You get my point, though, I hope. And yeah, frankly, for big stuff that bothered me, that was it. There wasn't enough detail, and when there was, it was kind of needless, and the pre-existing characters kind of killed what you were going for. If you wanted to do a pre-existing thing, maybe set it in a universe where stuff like that already happens, you know? Like, if you wanted to do it, maybe set it in an anime universe. Like, say, I don't know, Fairy Tail or something like that. Because with there, at least everyone has those powers and it's not weird. Because like I said, there's like nothing too fantasy or actiony about Ed, Edd n Eddy. The closest they get to fantasy is the one where the Eds break everything. And we're not even entirely sure if that happened or not. But that's the closest they got. Or, I don't know, maybe you could have worked that in there. Something. A reason for there to be fantasy elements in a show that is not a fantasy show would have helped, I feel. And trust me, I know, when I was young, because I know you guys are younger, I'm not that stupid. When I was young, I would put characters into stories too. But since this is the internet, since this made it onto my show, since you kind of got the gist of what an adult would feel about your story who isn't your mommy or your daddy, I gotta say, you guys are going in an okay direction, but if you want to do better, I would highly suggest these few things. Originality is a big one. Start stories with original characters, original settings. Pretty ignoring the random cut because what I initially said here didn't make sense, so I'm going to try and make it better. But yeah, doing this stuff is hard work. It is. People don't like to think that making stuff up on the fly is hard work. That's just because they consider hard work to be like physical labor and stuff like that. But it can be difficult. But honestly, all you have to do is to really picture what you want and then work around it. As if you want to work with like different names, like especially if you want to do like a fantasy thing, what I do when it comes to fantasy stuff, I just sort of mesh sounds together until it kind of sounds like a name, like Kenris or Own or stuff like that. Just when it comes to fantasy names, you just kind of gotta get creative with sounds and how well they work together. But if you're doing it like a place, like if you're setting it in Japan, for example, you want to use Japanese names. And frankly, you can just like read any manga, pick a name, bam, you're good. As long as they don't use like both first and last name, you're okay. In my opinion. That's my personal opinion. And with Western names, it's easier. You can just pick any name you know, and it's fine. But yeah, all you have to do, I know it sounds difficult, and it is, kind of. But once you get over that hurdle, it stops being difficult as you go. Like, you'll always have little hang-ups here and there, like, I personally have an OCD problem when it comes to names. Like, no name can have the same first letter because I'm crazy. That's why a lot of my shit doesn't get done, because I obsess over names for too long. But the more you work on it, the easier it'll get. That's all I wanted to say. So yeah, originality is one big thing I would suggest working on. Detail is another thing I would suggest working on. What I would do is I would honestly maybe pick up a book or maybe read a more professional story online or something and just see what kind of stuff they describe. I wouldn't copy them exactly. Like, I wouldn't take Harry Potter and describe the Dursley's house in detail to practice it. I'm just saying, like, for example, I wouldn't suggest you reading the Game of Thrones books. Those are very, very mature, and if you watch the show, you get what I mean. But in those, he likes to describe a lot of what people are wearing. They describe what the food's like, describes what metals are used in the sword, what the weapon looks like in detail. Like, the blade is black as night, and it has a jewel-encrusted silver hilt, and stuff like that. But yeah, detail is another thing. Like, work with how... Like, easiest way to work with detail, just how do people look? What does the environment you're in look like? How does the person behave considering how they look? Like, say, is the girl small and tomboyish, but she has a sweet and bubbly demeanor? Like that. And yeah, just detail. Describe the people. Describe the place. That's all you need to know. Other than that, things also could use a little work, I guess. They're more nitpicky. Like, when you were doing some of the RPG stuff, I noticed when one of the characters did the positive buffs on the characters, you would actually describe arrows going up and stuff like that. That works in video games just fine, but in stories, that's kind of odd. What I would actually suggest is like saying, she used a strength aura, and suddenly this character started glowing orange, and his face was filled with determination and shit like that. So, yeah, I think that should about cover it. Oh, and a big one I think I forgot to mention. You need to learn how to take criticism. I covered this in my Patrick's Diabetes is Dead video too, but I need to repeat this because I probably repeat it any time a story just disappears when I'm in the middle of it. So, yeah. Criticism is going to happen. There is no way to get around it at all. I will get criticized, you will get criticized, your mother will get criticized. Criticism happens. It sucks. Nobody likes it, but we all have to deal with it. So, little advice. When it comes to criticism, learn what is something you need to take in as important information and learn what is good to ignore. Like this video, for example, I hope is more constructive criticism, which I hope you take to heart to some degree, because I was only pointing out factual notes. I tried to be as nice about it as I possibly could. If I still managed to hurt your feelings, sorry. But it's constructive criticism. There's no way to get around it. But then it's people like, lol, this is shit, my grandkid could do better. That's stuff you can ignore, because that's just people being assholes. Like, at least when I'm being an asshole, I still try to follow it up with why I'm saying what I'm saying. So yeah, learn what is constructive and learn what is just white noise. Because that's the only way you're going to get around it, because unless you improve, the criticism about a particular thing will never go away. Maybe new criticisms will arise, and if you don't agree with them, you don't have to listen to them. Because frankly, if you did something a certain way on purpose for a reason that's just hard for a particular reader to understand, that's their problem, not yours. Like, who knows? Maybe I'm just completely off base, and everything you did had a lot more thought put into it than... Well, I don't want to say a lot of thought put into it. Maybe it had just more to it than I was understanding, because it's not my story. That's why I also bring up the detail thing, because I couldn't know something about your story unless you put it in your story. So, yeah. Originality, detail, learn to take criticism. That's my advice. So I will no longer be reading Celestial Heroes and moving on to another story next week. And the authors are watching, I hope I could help. If you're a starting writer and watching, I hope I could help. Because, yes, I do shit on stories, but I'm more or less just trying to be honest with you. I'm not trying to be an asshole. Well, I am a little bit, because people find that funny. But I'm not trying to be this horrible, like, dictator saying, you can't write this. I'm just saying, when it comes to the rules of writing that have already been established, this is what works and this is what doesn't. So I hope you really take into consideration what I have said does work and start applying it to your future stories. And frankly, I hope they come out even better than the ones I've seen so far, and maybe, who knows, maybe I'll stumble across them again. Maybe I'll love them. Just don't give up, okay? As long as someone likes your story, you're doing a good job. Just because one asshole on YouTube says one thing, it doesn't mean anything. People can agree with me, but that's the thing about opinions. It's their opinions. They're not fact. So just keep trying, and I assure you, you will do better. So, I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'm done recording for today. Hopefully I will get some stuff for you next week. I'm planning on it, because my schedule is about the same next week, so it should work out. But we'll find out. I'll see you all then if I do. Anyway, love you all. Have a wonderful day.